Did I ever tell you how lucky you are? By Dr. Seuss. When I was quite young and quite small for my size, I met an old man in the desert of dries, and he sang me a song I will never forget. At least, well, I haven't forgotten it yet. He sat in a terribly prickly place, but he sang with a sunny, sweet smile on his face. When you think things are bad, when you feel sour and blue, when you start to get mad, you should do what I do. Just tell yourself, Ducky, you're really quite lucky. Some people are much more, oh, ever so much more, oh, much, much more unlucky than you. Be glad you don't work on the Bungle Bung Bridge that they are building across Boober Bay at Bumridge. It's a troublesome world. All the people who are in it are troubled with troubles almost every minute. You ought to be thankful a whole heaping lot for the places and people. You're lucky you're not. Just suppose, for example, you lived in a gazette and got caught in that traffic on Highway 8. That's some crowded traffic. Oh, suppose, just for an instant, you lived in Gazier with your bedroom up here and your bathroom up there, way at the very top. Suppose, just suppose, you were poor Herbie Hart, who has taken his thrumdimbulator apart. He never will get it together, I'm sure. He never will know if the gick or the gore fits into the scrux or the snux or the snore. Yes, Ducky, you're lucky you're not Herbie Hart, who has taken his thrumdimbulator apart. Think they work you too hard? Think of poor Ollie Sard. He has to mow grass in his uncle's backyard, and it's quick growing grass, and it grows as he mows it. The faster he mows it, the faster it grows it. All that his stingy old uncle will pay for shoving that mower around in the hay is the piffiest pay of 2 ducats a day, and Ollie can't live on such a piffless pay. So he has to paint flagpoles on Sundays and grooves. How lucky you are you don't live in his shoes. And poor Mr. Bix, every morning at 6, poor Mr. Bix has his boarthorn to fix. It doesn't seem fair, it just doesn't seem right, but his boarfin just seems to go slumpy every night. It slumps in a heap, sadly needing repair. Bix figures it's due to the local night air. It takes him all day to unslump it, and then the night air comes back and it slumps once again. So don't you feel blue. Don't get down in the dumps. You're lucky you don't have a boyfriend that slumps. And while we're at it, consider the schlots, the grumplehorn, web-footed, green-bearded schlots, whose tail is entailed with unsolvable knots. If he isn't muchly more worse off than you, I'll eat my umbrella. That's just what I'll do. And you're lucky indeed. You don't ride on a camel. To ride on a camel, you sit on a wammel. A wammel, you know, is a sort of a saddle held on by a button that's known as a faddle. And boy, if your old wammel faddle gets loose, I'm telling you, Ducky, you're gone like a goose. And poor Mr. Potter, T-crosser, I daughter, he has to cross T's and he has to dot I's. in an I&T factory out in Van Nuys. Oh, the jobs people work at. Out west near Hawwich Hotch, there there's a Hawwich Hot bee watcher. His job is to watch is to keep is to keep both eyes on the lazy town bee. A bee that is watched will work harder, you see. Well, he watched and he watched, but in spite of his watch, that bee didn't work any harder, not much. So then somebody said, our old bee watching man just isn't bee watching as hard as he can. He ought to be watched by another hotch watcher. The thing that we need is a bee watcher. Well, the bee watcher watched the bee watcher. He didn't watch well, so another hotcher had come in as a watcher. And today all the hotch watchers who live in Hotch are watching on watching, watching the watcher who's watching that bee. You're not a hot watcher, you're lucky, you see. And how fortunate you're not a Professor DeBreeze, who has spent the past 32 years, if you please, trying to teach Irish ducks how to read Javanese. And think of the poor puffing Pugelhorn players who have to parade down the Pugelhorn stairs every morning to wake up the Prince of Puboken. It's awful how often their pugels get broken. And oh, just suppose you were poor Harry Hutto. Try as he will, he can't make any shadow. He thinks that perhaps something wrong with his giz, and I think that by golly, there probably is. And the poor brothers Bazoo, suppose your hair grew like theirs happened to do. You think you're unlucky? I'm telling you, ducky, some people are ever so muchly more unlucky than you. And suppose that you lived in the forest in France, where the average young person just hasn't a chance to escape from the perilous pant-eating plants, but your pants are safe. You're a fortunate guy, and you ought to be shouting, how lucky am I? And speaking of plants, you should be greatly gladish. You're not Farmer Falkenberg's 17th radish. And you're so lucky you're not Gucky Gown, who lives by himself 99 miles out of town in the ruins of Ronk. Ronk is rather run down. And you're so lucky you're not a left sock left behind by mistake in the caverns of Croc. Thank goodness for all the things you are not. Thank goodness you're not something someone forgot and left all alone in some punkerish place like a rusty tin coat hanger hanging in space. That's why I say, Ducky, don't grumble, don't stew. Some critters are much, oh, ever so much more unlucky than you. The end.